As I'm writing this, it blows my mind to look back and realize the 2010s were 13 years ago. It doesn't sound like much, but times do indeed change. For me, looking back at the 7th gen of consoles has become both nostalgic and sad. It was full of underrated gems that got buried under the gold rush of the military shooter genre, just as Call of Duty had reached a new peak with the Black Ops games. One of those underrated gems? Vanquish. On the surface, it looks like another sci-fi third-person shooter, not that different from the likes of Halo, until you look at the studio behind it. Platinum Games, before reducing themselves to making a terrible live service game that unceremoniously died and closed down, they have been known for making some of the best action games out there. Genres may vary, but in general their brand of games fit into what many of us call spectacle fighters. I am counting Vanquish as a spectacle fighter because while on paper you can play it like a regular third-person shooter, if you know what you are doing or decide to take a couple of fun risks, this game becomes an adrenaline-fueled spectacle. But as usual, I am getting ahead of myself, so let's cover the basics first. Vanquish has you play as college sports star turned DARPA soldier Sam Gideon, tagging along a battalion of Space Marines. The city of San Francisco was attacked and destroyed by a microwave beam from a space station controlled by not Russians, but rather Space Russians, who are trying to wipe out the United States and convert it into space communism. So Sam and the Space Marines are heading to the space station that launched the attack in retaliation and to destroy the deadly microwave laser. But that is easier said than done, because the only thing deadlier than a space laser controlled by Space Russians is said Space Russians having a nearly endless army of space communist robots. Yes, this is one of those games. The premise is extremely silly, and I love it. As I said earlier, this game can be played in two ways. You can play from beginning to end, treating this game like a cover shooter, and you can still have a grand old time. But the true strength of the game, however, lies in one of my favorite things in video games: player exploration. To accomplish this, the game gives you a sweet variety of weapons, fast-paced movement from Sam, and of course, bullet time. The main idea being that if you want to play risky but at the same time do an awesome job, you can use your own movement to dodge enemy fire, activate bullet time when it feels like you're getting overrun with enemy bullets, and then take advantage of the opening to find cover while your bullet meter comes down. Because if you let your bullet time / propulsion system overheat, it goes into an extended cooldown period, which isn't too bad in itself, except getting caught in it in the heat of battle while in cooldown mode can expose you to some serious danger, unless of course you know what you are doing and use the extra adrenaline in your own body to find your way into cover. And it's not like overheating is something you can easily avoid. Being a 7th gen game, it means you get regenerating health. If you get low enough that your life may be at risk, then it will go automatically into bullet time mode to give you time to seek cover or to kill whoever is attacking you before you die to further attacks. So in essence, you are playing a game of risk and reward. A lot of the cooler stuff you can do is tied to the bullet time meter. Your main risk is not having a safe escape route if anything goes wrong, with the main reward being clearing enemies faster than they can actually hurt you. Mind you, these Russian robots are not pushovers. While the majority of them are simple riflemen, you also get to face a bit of a variety of enemies. From heavier units, to large brawlers, to even facing more dangerous things like missile launchers. To spice things up, this game does something really neat and really refreshing given the state of AAA games nowadays. There is no real progression system. What you see is what you get, and the closest thing you get to leveling up is the upgrade system for the weapons. Except that one is also a game of both patience and strategy. See, enemies, crates, and so on will tend to drop guns here and there. Usually they can be the same guns as the ones you got equipped, so that's how you keep your ammo from depleting. However, if you pick up a gun you already have equipped but you have full ammo, it gets counted towards its upgrade. If you collect enough copies of the same gun, it will cause it to level up, adding some benefits like a larger clip, better rate of fire, or even higher ammo capacity. You will think this could be a negative since you have to go out of your way to refrain from using a gun if you are planning to upgrade it. Thankfully, the game balances this out by literally showering you with guns. Made even easier by all the Space Marines accompanying you. They're more or less cannon fodder to take some weight off your shoulders in the more intense gunfights. Some of them can be revived if they go down. Every time you manage to revive any of them, you get rewarded with a random weapon, and sometimes just an upgrade chip that lets you skip collecting copies of the same gun. And even then, upgrading your guns is not something obligatory to do. There's a crazy variety of weapons, and all of them can be just as useful as your default loadout. All of them perfect for specific situations, and all of them ideal to have an even more customized experience. But of course, that is something optimal if you wish to get a little extra punch for your weapons, because it doesn't really matter how many upgrades you get. What matters is you know how to use them. And this is better exemplified in the game's survival mode. I know, Horde mode was probably the greatest staple of shooters in the 7th generation, but this one in particular was awesome to me, because it is not endless. You have to survive a fixed number of waves, with the challenge being how fast you can clear them. It is neat, and it makes for a nice way to practice and train yourself if you feel like cranking out the difficulty in the campaign. Since this makes the game's combat to be fast-paced and full of adrenaline, to avoid falling into repetition, the level design and overall pacing of the game is also really great. You can have some of the most intense and over-the-top battles you can imagine in one scenario, then have that conflict escalate into a crazy climax where everything is on the line. And once all of that is over, the game gets quiet for a bit. Quiet time is essential for titles like this, same as more calm set pieces or smaller vehicle segments. They serve as a way to let you breathe for a few minutes, explore the map for any pickups or even any secrets you may have missed during the gunfight, and then get to digest all the craziness you went through. And you do want those breathing moments, because when this game gets crazy, it gets seriously crazy, especially with the boss fights. Man, do I love the boss fights in this game. They're like the cherry on top of the adrenaline cake. They put your skills to the test. The arenas you're in make you think strategically about how you deal with them, and the best part is, the further you move into the game, the more insane and spectacular they become. Now, the way I described the story earlier may have sounded like an exaggeration or may trying to be funny, sort of true, but the reality is, the story is just pure campy cheese and I love it. The overarching plot is very straightforward. Sam and the Marines are on a race against time to stop this doomsday device from causing further harm on American soil, so everything is fast-paced and beyond cliché.
DARPA operatives take their orders directly from POTUS and SecDef. These guys are just interested in marking their territory.
Despite watching these Marines get killed left and right during gameplay, you get hit with scenes of Sam being an absolute hero, worried about the well-being of his fellow soldiers. Burns, the Marine commander, clashes both in size and personality with Sam, and the two are just a delight with how the two of them constantly exchange insults and one-liners with each other.
I'm getting good at this falling out of transports thing, don't you think?
More like getting good at looking like an asshole.
But it's not like camp and cheese is the only thing this game has going for it. As I said, Sam is a soldier under DARPA's orders, and despite collaborating with the Marines, he has his own orders and his own agenda, and of course, so does Burns. The plot gets very convoluted, but in a very ridiculous and fun way, given how it is a battle of the US being threatened by WMDs, DARPA's involvement, and the fact our hero is a cybernetic enhanced chain-smoking badass. I'd say this game wouldn't be out of place in a Metal Gear universe. Better yet, replaying this game for this video in 2023 makes me realize there is a lot of Metal Gear Rising in this game, and that was before Metal Gear Rising was even a thing. With all the good stuff I have said about this game so far, are there any flaws at all with it? I'll say not really, at least not in my own subjective opinion. Back in the day, and even when the PC version released, one of the main criticisms about this game was being too linear or the gameplay feeling repetitive. Given what I told you so far, I disagree with this notion. Games like this, with open combat, a variety of weapons, and a decent length at about 4 to 5 hours depending on difficulty and your own skill level, are made to be replayed. Like I said earlier, you can play from beginning to end with only your default weapons and simply taking cover, or you can go out of your way to take a risk and make things look awesome from every battle you get. But in the age of achievements, progression systems, and 100-hour open worlds, some may ask, why bother doing any of that if the game is short and there is nothing to unlock? You do it because it's fun. You want to do it again so you score better in later runs, to test out any of the other ones you didn't pick up, to see what other crazy stuff you can pull. Because as much as the neck-breaking speed of social media has convinced many people that your first playthrough is the most valuable and that replays will never be as magical, I have to once again disagree. I have felt the satisfaction of stumbling my way to victory in my first run of a game, only to play even better in my second run, and feel the satisfaction of seeing my character look like the awesome hero he was advertised as on the trailers. Not by cinematics, but by your own player actions. So in the end, all I can really say is, please play this game. It is a true underrated gem, and it is one of those one-shot titles I wish it had a sequel that could expand on its gameplay. But sadly, as it happens with a lot of Platinum titles, they end up being confined as their own little gems. So I guess the silver lining is to be able to say there's not many games like this, and they don't really make much of them like this anymore. At least not on the AAA side.